Imagine if everything you've ever tried to attract money into your life was missing a single secret ingredient. Something so simple you already have it in your home. Yet, it carries a spiritual force capable of opening closed doors, dissolving invisible blocks, and multiplying the flow of prosperity all around you. What if I told you that this humble mineral holds within it an ancestral energy, a silent memory of all that the earth has witnessed, a living archive of vibration that can transform your relationship with money, protect your home, and unlock opportunities you once thought impossible? Salt is the quiet witness of history, present in the tears we shed, the sweat of our work, the oceans that surround us. For thousands of years, our ancestors understood something about salt that modern society has forgotten. They knew it wasn't just a seasoning or a preservative, but a sacred substance capable of bridging the physical and spiritual worlds. Ancient civilizations built their wealth around salt trade routes. Wars were fought over salt mines. Entire economies rose and fell based on access to this precious mineral. Today, I'll show you how to use salt simply, intentionally, and powerfully to activate the hidden prosperity law. Prepare your energetic field, and command money to enter and remain in your life. This isn't superstition nor empty magic, but a spiritual science tested by thousands who have seen their lives shift through the simplest of rituals. Florence Scovel Shinn, one of the greatest prosperity teachers of all time, understood that the universe responds not just to what you think or say, but to the energy you activate in your field with your presence, your intention, your smallest gestures. And just for a moment, let yourself wonder. What if the secret to your next breakthrough was already waiting for you on your kitchen shelf, ready to be awakened by your word? What if the very substance that has preserved food for millennia could also preserve and amplify your financial intentions? Before we dive deeper into this life-changing practice, I want you to do something powerful right now. Write in the comments below, "I activate the salt law." This isn't just a phrase. It's a vibrational command that connects you to thousands of others walking this same path. Every comment creates a ripple in the field of prosperity that we're building together. When many people declare it together, we create a wave of abundance that accelerates results for everyone. Every single comment, every word of intention becomes a spark in the field, igniting possibility, connecting you to others on this same journey. And make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because each new subscriber strengthens our collective energy field, where abundance flows freely for everyone. Each new subscriber expands our field, weaving you even closer to this growing circle of prosperity, where abundance circulates for all. Here, every like, every share, every message is an offering, a thread in the tapestry we're creating together. You may never meet all the people walking this path with you, but their energy, their intentions, their victories amplify your own. Think back to those moments when it felt like money was slipping through your fingers, no matter how hard you worked, as if unseen obstacles always block the flow, just when things were about to improve. Maybe you've experienced those late nights running numbers in your mind, feeling the pressure of bills, the ache of wanting to give your family more, or that sense that abundance was always just out of reach. Those moments when you stared at your bank account, wondering how you could work so hard and still feel like you're falling behind. Maybe you've told yourself it's just the economy, or bad timing or luck, that never seems to turn in your favor. Perhaps you've tried affirmations, vision boards, meditation, positive thinking, and while these things help temporarily, the old patterns of lack and limitation kept creeping back in. You might have even started to believe that financial abundance was meant for other people, not for you. That somehow you were cursed with bad luck, or that prosperity was reserved for those born into wealth, or blessed with special talents. But what if beneath it all, Your energy field was still carrying invisible residues, memories of lack, silent agreements with limitation, or even old stories from your family that continue to shape your prosperity, even after you've worked to change your beliefs. What if the reason money keeps slipping away isn't because you're not working hard enough, but because your energetic field hasn't been properly prepared to receive and hold abundance? You see, most people focus only on the mental and emotional aspects of prosperity, but they forget about the physical anchor. They forget that we live in a material world, where thoughts need to be grounded in matter to manifest. This is where salt comes in. Salt has been used for thousands of years as a bridge between the seen and unseen worlds, a conductor of spiritual energy, a preserver of intention. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that true transformation starts inside in the soil of your belief, but it manifests through outer rituals that give shape to your intention. Salt in this journey acts as a catalyst for change, a vibrational amplifier for your word, a seal for your decrees, a sacred bridge between your desire and the invisible field of opportunity. When you learn how to use salt correctly, things begin to align in ways that defy explanation. Doors open. The right people cross your path, ideas begin to flow like a river, and money at last finds its way to you, not by force, but by spiritual law. Let me share with you a story that will show you exactly how powerful this practice can be. Just last month, I received an email from Sarah, a 38-year-old single mother from Denver, Colorado. Her words carried that raw honesty of someone who's tried everything practical and was finally willing to explore what logic alone could never explain. Sarah wrote, "I've always been skeptical about spiritual practices. I'm a nurse, I believe in science, in hard work, in doing everything right. But the past 3 years have been a nightmare financially." She explained how despite working double shifts, picking up extra hours whenever possible, and cutting every expense she could think of, she was still living paycheck to paycheck. Every time she thought she was getting ahead, something would happen. Her car would break down, her daughter would get sick, or an unexpected bill would arrive. It felt like the universe was conspiring against her, like there was some invisible force keeping her trapped in a cycle of financial stress. I remember one particularly dark night. Sarah continued. When I was sitting at my kitchen table, with all my bills spread out in front of me, trying to figure out which ones I could delay paying without getting shut-off notices. My daughter was asleep in the next room, and I was crying silently, feeling like such a failure as a mother. I had worked so hard to give her a good life, but it felt like I was always one emergency away from disaster. Sarah had tried everything she could think of. She had taken financial planning courses, read every budgeting book she could find, even worked with a financial advisor who told her she was doing everything right, but just needed to earn more money. The problem was, there were only so many hours in a day, and she was already working as much as humanly possible. I was at my breaking point. Sarah continued. I had $47 in my checking account, rent was due in 3 days, and I had no idea where the money was going to come from. That's when I stumbled across one of your videos about the salt ritual. I thought it was crazy, but I was desperate enough to try anything. What did I have to lose? Sarah didn't have a fancy jar or special container. She simply took a small coffee mug, one that her daughter had given her for Mother's Day with "World's Best Mom" written on it, filled it with a tablespoon of table salt, and placed it on her kitchen counter. She whispered the words, "I activate the salt law. I am ready to receive abundance. I release all blocks to my prosperity. Money flows to me easily and joyfully." She did this every morning before work, and every evening when she came home, sometimes just touching the mug and repeating her intention silently. I didn't feel anything magical at first, Sarah admitted. But something inside me started to shift. I began to notice opportunities I had been blind to before. a coworker mentioned that the hospital was looking for someone to pick up weekend shifts in the emergency department. Something I had never considered, because I thought I wasn't qualified enough. Instead of talking herself out of it, like she normally would, Sarah applied for the position. She prepared for the interview by researching emergency nursing procedures, practiced answering common interview questions, and even bought a new blouse with money she could barely afford. But something felt different this time. Instead of the usual anxiety and self-doubt, she felt a quiet confidence, as if the universe was supporting her efforts. Not only did she get the position, but the pay was 40% higher than her regular shifts. The emergency department supervisor was so impressed with Sarah's dedication and positive attitude that she offered her as many weekend shifts as she wanted. Within 2 weeks of starting her salt ritual, she had secured additional income that would solve her immediate financial crisis and give her breathing room she hadn't had in years. But the story doesn't end there. Sarah continued her practice, touching her salt-filled mug every morning and evening, speaking her affirmations with growing conviction. She began to notice other changes too. Her relationship with her daughter improved, because she wasn't constantly stressed about money. She started sleeping better at night. She even began to enjoy her work more, finding meaning and purpose in helping patients during their most vulnerable moments. Within 6 weeks, something even more remarkable happened. A patient she had cared for months earlier, a wealthy businessman who had been impressed by her compassion and professionalism during his stay in the ICU, reached out to offer her a position as a private nurse for his elderly mother. He had remembered her kindness, her attention to detail, and her genuine care for his well-being during one of the most frightening experiences of his life. The salary he offered was double what she was making at the hospital, with full benefits, flexible hours that would allow her to spend more time with her daughter, and even a small apartment on the family's property if she wanted to relocate. Sarah was stunned. She had never imagined such an opportunity could exist, let alone come her way. "I still keep that coffee mug with salt on my counter," Sarah wrote. "It's become my daily reminder that abundance is always available, that I am worthy of receiving, and that the universe is always conspiring in my favor. My daughter asks me why I talk to the salt every morning, and I tell her it's my way of saying, thank you for all the blessings that are coming our way. She's started doing it too, and I swear her grades have improved since she began practicing gratitude with me." If you're feeling inspired by Sarah's transformation, take a moment right now to show your support for this community by giving this video a thumbs up. Your like not only helps spread this message to others who need it, but it also adds your energy to our collective field of prosperity. Every like, every share, every positive comment strengthens the field for everyone. And if you feel called to go even deeper, consider becoming a channel member to access exclusive content and join our private community of prosperity practitioners, where we share advanced techniques and celebrate each other's victories. Now, let me show you exactly how to perform this powerful ritual step by step. The beauty of this practice lies in its simplicity, but don't let that fool you into thinking it's not powerful. Some of the most profound spiritual practices are the simplest ones. You don't need expensive materials or complicated procedures. All you need is salt, a container, and a sincere intention to transform your relationship with money. First, choose your container. This could be anything that feels meaningful to you: a small glass jar, a ceramic bowl, a coffee mug like Sarah used, or even a tiny bottle you can carry with you. Some people prefer clear glass so they can see the salt, while others choose opaque containers that feel more mysterious and sacred. The key is that it should be something you can see regularly, and that feels special to you in some way. Hold this container in your hands for a moment, and set the intention that it will become a sacred vessel for your prosperity. Feel its weight, its texture, its temperature. Imagine it filling with golden light, becoming a beacon that will attract abundance from every direction. This is your prosperity altar, your physical anchor for the invisible forces you're about to activate. Next, fill your container with salt. Any type of salt will work: table salt, sea salt, rock salt, Himalayan pink salt, it doesn't matter. What matters is your intention. As you pour the salt, do it slowly and mindfully. Visualize each grain as a tiny crystal programmed with abundance. See the salt as a magnet drawing prosperity from every direction, a beacon calling money and opportunities into your life. Some people like to add a few drops of essential oil to their salt. Oils like cinnamon for prosperity, orange for joy, or frankincense for spiritual connection. Others prefer to keep it pure and simple. Trust your intuition about what feels right for you. The universe responds to authenticity, not to rigid formulas. Now comes the most important part, the activation. Hold your container of salt in both hands, and close your eyes, and take 3 deep breaths. Feel yourself connecting to the earth, to the oceans where this salt originated, to the ancient wisdom that has recognized salt's power for thousands of years. Feel your feet rooted to the ground, your heart open to receiving, your mind clear and focused on your intention. When you feel centered and focused, speak these words aloud with conviction and authority. I activate the salt law. I am a magnet for money and abundance. I release all blocks to my prosperity. I welcome wealth into my life with gratitude and joy. This salt holds my intention and amplifies my power to receive. So it is, and so it shall be. Feel the power of these words as they leave your lips. Imagine them being absorbed by the salt, creating a vibrational frequency that will continue to work on your behalf 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This salt is now programmed with your intention, charged with your desire, and ready to help transform your financial reality. Place your container somewhere you will see it every day. This could be on your kitchen counter, your bedside table, your desk at work, or anywhere that feels right to you. Some people create a small prosperity altar with their salt container as the centerpiece, adding crystals, coins, or images that represent abundance to them. Others prefer to keep it simple and discreet. Every time you see your salt container, let it serve as a reminder of your commitment to prosperity. Touch it gently, and repeat your affirmation, even if it's just silently in your mind. Some people like to hold the container for a moment each morning and evening, speaking their gratitude for the abundance that's already flowing into their lives. Here's where the magic really begins to unfold. As you continue this practice day after day, you'll start to notice subtle shifts in your energy, your thoughts, and your circumstances. You might find yourself speaking more positively about money, taking inspired actions you wouldn't have taken before, or noticing opportunities that were always there but somehow invisible to you. But why does this work? How can something as simple as salt have such a profound impact on your financial life? The answer lies in understanding both the spiritual and scientific principles at work here. Salt has been revered as sacred across virtually every culture throughout history. In ancient times, it was so valuable it was used as currency. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt, which is where we get the phrase, worth his salt. The word, salary, itself comes from the Latin word, salarium, which referred to the money paid to Roman soldiers to buy salt. This wasn't just because salt was expensive, but because it was recognized as essential for life, health, and preservation. Ancient peoples understood that salt had properties beyond the physical, that it could preserve not just food, but energy, intention, and spiritual power. From a spiritual perspective, salt represents purity, preservation, and protection. It doesn't decay or spoil, making it a symbol of eternal abundance. In many traditions, Salt is used to cleanse negative energy and create sacred space. Jewish tradition includes salt in the blessing of bread. In Christianity, salt is mentioned numerous times as a symbol of wisdom and preservation. Hindu and Buddhist traditions use salt in purification rituals. When you use salt in your prosperity ritual, you're tapping into thousands of years of collective human understanding about its power. You're connecting with the wisdom of your ancestors, who knew that certain substances could serve as bridges between the physical and spiritual worlds. From a scientific standpoint, salt is essential for life itself. Your body is made up of approximately 60% water, and that water contains salt. Every nerve impulse, every thought, every emotion travels through your body via electrical signals carried by salt water. Your brain, your heart, your entire nervous system depends on the proper balance of salt and water to function. When you speak your affirmations over salt, you're literally programming the same substance that carries information throughout your nervous system. You're creating a resonance between your intention and the very medium through which your thoughts and emotions flow. This creates a feedback loop that reinforces your prosperity consciousness at the cellular level. Moreover, salt is a crystal, and crystals have the ability to store and transmit information. This is why quartz crystals are used in computers and electronic devices. They can hold and process vast amounts of data. When you charge your salt with your intention, you're creating a physical anchor for your desires, a constant transmitter broadcasting your prosperity frequency into the universe. Let me share another powerful story that demonstrates how this principle works in real life. Michael, a 45-year-old construction worker from Phoenix, Arizona, had been struggling with inconsistent work for over 2 years. The construction industry in his area had been hit hard by economic downturns, and he was lucky to get 2 or 3 days of work per week. His savings were depleted, his confidence was shattered, and he was considering leaving the trade he had loved for over 20 years. Michael's wife had been following our channel and convinced him to try the salt ritual, though he was initially resistant. "I'm a practical guy," he told me in his email. "I believe in hard work and showing up on time." All this spiritual stuff seemed like wishful thinking to me. I thought my wife was getting a little too woo-woo for my taste. But his wife's persistence, combined with his desperation and the mounting pressure of unpaid bills, finally convinced him to give it a try. What finally got me to try it, Michael explained, was when my wife pointed out that I had tried everything else. I had applied to dozens of companies, updated my resume, even considered going back to school for a different career. Nothing was working, so what did I have to lose? Michael chose a small mason jar, the kind his grandmother used to use for canning, and filled it with coarse sea salt. He placed it on his workbench in the garage, right next to his tools, and committed to speaking his intention over it every morning before looking for work. His affirmation was simple and direct. "I activate the salt law. Good paying work comes to me easily and consistently. I am valued for my skills and experience. Opportunities find me wherever I go." At first, Michael felt awkward talking to a jar of salt. "I felt like an idiot," he admitted. But I kept thinking about how desperate our situation was getting, and I figured if there was even a small chance this could help, I had to try. My wife and kids were counting on me. Within 1 week of starting this practice, Michael received a call from a contractor he had worked with years earlier. A large commercial project had just been approved, a new shopping center that would require skilled workers for at least 18 months. They needed experienced workers immediately and were willing to pay premium wages to get the right people. Not only was the pay better than anything Michael had seen in months, but the project was expected to last for over a year, providing the stability he desperately needed. "I couldn't believe it," Michael wrote. This contractor hadn't called me in over 3 years, and suddenly he's offering me steady work at great pay. It felt like a miracle. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. As Michael continued his salt ritual throughout the project, he began to notice that his reputation was growing. Other contractors started seeking him out, impressed by his positive attitude and reliable work ethic. Word spread that Michael was not only skilled, but also a pleasure to work with. Someone who brought good energy to the job site. By the end of the year, Michael had more work offers than he could handle. He was able to pick and choose the projects he wanted to work on, commanding higher wages because of his reputation for quality work and positive attitude. Eventually, he made the decision to start his own small construction company, something he had dreamed about for years, but never had the confidence to pursue. "I still have that mason jar of salt on my workbench," Michael wrote. "It's become my good luck charm. My daily reminder that abundance is always available if I stay open to receiving it. My business is thriving. I have a crew of 5 guys working for me, and I'm making more money than I ever thought possible. I don't know if it's the salt, or just the change in my mindset, but something definitely shifted when I started that ritual." If Michael's story resonates with you, I want you to take action right now. In the comments below, share what kind of work or income opportunity you're calling into your life. It could be a promotion, a new job, a business opportunity, or even just more hours at your current position. When you declare your intention publicly, you're not only programming your own subconscious mind, but you're also inviting the support and energy of this entire community. We're all rooting for each other's success here. Now, let me share some advanced techniques that can amplify the power of your salt ritual even further. Once you've established your basic practice and are seeing results, you can begin to layer in additional elements that will accelerate your manifestation process and deepen your connection to the prosperity field. One powerful technique is to create multiple salt stations throughout your environment. Place a small container of charged salt in your car, another at your workplace, and perhaps a tiny vial in your wallet or purse. Each of these becomes an anchor point for prosperity energy, creating a network of abundance that surrounds you wherever you go. Think of it as creating a prosperity grid that follows you through your daily life. Another advanced practice is to refresh your salt on a regular schedule, perhaps every full moon or every Sunday. The full moon is particularly powerful for prosperity work because it represents the peak of manifestation energy. When you dispose of the old salt, do so with gratitude, thanking it for the work it has done on your behalf. You can pour it into running water, scatter it in your garden, or simply flush it down the drain while expressing appreciation for its service. You can also enhance your ritual by adding other elements that resonate with prosperity. Some people like to place a few coins next to their salt container, representing the money they want to attract. Others add a small piece of citrine or pyrite, crystals known for their money attracting properties. Green candles, bay leaves with written intentions, or even a small photo of something you want to purchase, can all be incorporated into your prosperity altar. The key is to make this practice your own. Trust your intuition about what feels right for you. The universe responds to authenticity and personal connection, not to rigid adherence to someone else's formula. Your salt ritual should feel meaningful and powerful to you, regardless of how simple or elaborate you choose to make it. As you continue this practice, you may notice that your relationship with money begins to shift in profound ways. Many people report feeling less anxious about finances, more confident in their ability to attract income, and more generous in their giving. This last point is particularly important because generosity is one of the fastest ways to accelerate the flow of abundance in your life. When you give freely, whether it's money, time, or energy, You send a powerful message to the universe that you trust in the endless supply available to you. This trust creates a vacuum that the universe rushes to fill with even greater abundance. Consider making a small donation to a cause you care about, or supporting this channel through the Super Thanks feature if you found value in this content. Every act of generosity creates a ripple effect that returns to you multiplied. Let me share one more story that perfectly illustrates this principle. Jennifer, a 29-year-old teacher from Seattle, had been practicing the salt ritual for about 3 months with modest but encouraging results. She had received a small raise at work and had found a part-time tutoring opportunity that brought in extra income. While she was grateful for these improvements, she felt like she had hit a plateau and wasn't sure how to take her prosperity to the next level. That's when Jennifer decided to incorporate giving into her practice. Every time she performed her salt ritual, she would also put a dollar bill into a separate jar, committing to donate this money to charity at the end of each month. She called it her abundance overflow jar, and it became a physical representation of her trust in the universe's ability to provide for her needs and more. The results were almost immediate. Within 2 weeks of starting this giving practice, Jennifer received an unexpected call from a former colleague who had started an educational consulting company. They needed someone with Jennifer's expertise in curriculum development to help with a major client, and they were willing to pay 3 times her hourly teaching rate for the work. The consulting project lasted 6 months and led to additional opportunities that eventually allowed Jennifer to leave her full-time teaching position and start her own educational consulting business. Today she earns more in a month than she used to make in an entire school year. And she attributes much of her success to the combination of the salt ritual and her commitment to generous giving. The salt taught me to receive, Jennifer explained in her email, but the giving taught me to trust. When you give freely, you prove to yourself and the universe that you believe in abundance. That belief becomes a magnet for even greater prosperity. Now I donate 10% of everything I earn, and the more I give, the more I receive. It's like a beautiful cycle that just keeps expanding. As we near the end of our time together today, I want to address something that many people struggle with when they begin this practice: doubt. It's natural to question whether something so simple can really create such profound changes in your life. Your logical mind may try to convince you that any results you experience are just coincidence, or that you're fooling yourself with wishful thinking. When these doubts arise, and they will, remember the stories you've heard today. Remember Sarah, the nurse who went from 47 in her bank account to a high-paying private nursing position. Remember Michael, the construction worker who went from sporadic work to owning his own successful company. Remember Jennifer, the teacher who transformed her financial life through the combination of salt ritual and generous giving. These aren't fairy tales or made-up success stories. These are real people who were willing to try something new, who committed to a simple daily practice, and who opened themselves to receiving the abundance that was always available to them. You have that same power within you right now. The salt ritual works, not because of magic or superstition, but because it helps you align your thoughts, emotions, and actions with the frequency of abundance. It serves as a daily reminder of your commitment to prosperity, a physical anchor for your intentions, and a symbol of your willingness to receive all the good that life has to offer. As you begin or continue your own salt ritual practice, remember that consistency is key. Like any spiritual discipline, the power comes not from a single dramatic gesture, but from the accumulation of small, daily acts of faith. Each time you speak your affirmation over your salt, each time you touch your container with gratitude, each time you notice and appreciate the abundance already present in your life, you're building momentum toward your financial breakthrough. Some days the practice will feel powerful and meaningful. Other days it might feel routine or even silly. Do it anyway. The universe responds to commitment, not to feelings. Your subconscious mind is being reprogrammed with each repetition, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Also remember that prosperity comes in many forms. While you may be focused on attracting more money, be open to receiving abundance in unexpected ways. It might come as a new opportunity, a helpful connection, a creative idea, or even a shift in perspective that allows you to see possibilities you had previously missed. Trust that the universe knows the best way to deliver what you need. Don't forget that you're part of a community here. Use the comments section to share your experiences, ask questions, and support others on their prosperity journey. When we celebrate each other's successes and offer encouragement during challenges, we strengthen the collective field of abundance that benefits everyone. Before you go, I want you to take one more action that will seal your commitment to this practice. In the comments below, write not just, "I activate the SALT law," but also share one specific financial goal you're working toward. It could be paying off debt, saving for a house, starting a business, earning a specific amount of money, or simply having more financial peace of mind. When you declare your intention publicly, you're making a contract with the universe and inviting the support of this entire community. There's something powerful about putting your dreams into words and sharing them with others who believe in the same principles you're learning about today. And if this video has provided value to you, if you can see yourself implementing this practice and transforming your relationship with money, please show your appreciation by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us reach more people who need this message, and it adds your energy to our collective prosperity field. Consider also sharing this video with someone who might benefit from learning about the SALT ritual. Maybe it's a family member who's struggling financially, a friend who's been stressed about money, or a coworker who's been talking about wanting to change their financial situation. When you share this knowledge, you're not only helping someone else, but you're also strengthening your own prosperity consciousness by acting as a channel for abundance. Remember, the secret ingredient to financial abundance has been waiting in your kitchen all along. Salt. This humble mineral that has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, that carries within it the memory of ancient oceans, and the power to preserve and purify, is ready to become your partner in creating the prosperous life you deserve. Take that first step today. Find your container, fill it with salt. Speak your intention with conviction, and begin the practice that could change everything. Your future abundant self is waiting, and the salt is ready to help you bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. The hidden prosperity law is activated. Your abundance is assured. It is done.